Okay, hey, Jurgen, hey, Harold, how's it going?
Hi there.
We're here to provide our potential investors a bit of an update. We started our Agile crowdfunding round last November. We have a lot of resources out there available, but a lot has happened too. So we figured it's a good time to talk about what we've discovered and some new paths that have a lot of high potential. So, Jurgen, why don't you start talking about um, some of the things that have been going on?
I thought we'd be talking first about the learnings of the last couple of months and then switch to vision. So the
Okay.
learning better in your and Harold's corner explained there. So why don't you and the investors, you have the numbers better in your heads than I have. I've been
We
working
do.
more on
We
the
do.
couple of months where we're heading in the future. So.
Sorry, you're gonna. Okay, good. Let's do that. Let's talk a little bit about the our goals for the funding round and where we ended up and what our strategies are now. Harold, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so I think we communicated publicly that we have switched to an ongoing funding mode. In the past we had a round that was limited in time, and now we've switched to a mode which I think Jürgen, you invented that term to me at least, agile funding, which means we are open continuously for people, and we communicate how much we need per quarter. And there, when we started in November, we said we need 225K. That was the burn rate at the time. Now, in the first quarter, we didn't reach that. And so what we did was we adjusted our spending so that we can actually operate with the cash that came in and that we still have. So at the moment, we're at 180K that came in from the order is like 30 to 40 investors. We had more than 200 people register their interest of €1,000, which is currently the minimum and above. So the maximum numbers that we saw were from an individual was 40K. And then, of course, many people with 1,000, but also quite a few with 5, 8, 10K. So we also said we are giving some benefits to investors that spend a bit more or invest a bit more. So we gave out 17 free for life licenses for people who invested more than or equal to €2,500 in the first quarter. And we also gave away, or I should say Jürgen, talks, 1 hour talks by Jürgen to 5 investors who invested more than €7,500. So yeah, that's the I think the summary that I want to give for the numbers. So our spending is a lot lower. We don't need 225K. So of course we'd be happy to get it. We managed to cut the spending and still operate as a team as normal as we started in November.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope that. I mean, of course, we could go into more details. I mean, we have, for example, we have investors from more than 40 countries. Things like that. So it's very encouraging to have people from all over the world.
Yeah.
Yep. And what I would like to add, because there's a question on many people's minds, is how risky is an investment in our company? Because could things fall over at any time? Well, I will make sure that doesn't, because it is in my own interest to keep this company alive. Because, for example, I have a book coming out, and I have new workshops that I am working on, and all of those assume that there is a platform that we're working on, Mindsetters, that we're going to use for content. For the new workshops, for the new book, etc. So it would obviously be weird if once the book came out, then at the same time, the company would not exist anymore. So I don't want investors to be worried about that. I have a good amount of resources to keep investing in agility skills, make sure it keeps going on. But it would be awesome if I was not the only one, and that's why I want people. I hope that people want to invest along with me, and that's why we have this video call. So that's the situation, and we do it in a very agile, lean fashion. No huge budgets that we wire to the company and that then just sit there doing nothing on the bank account and depleting slowly. So we keep it quite lean, and the fund on a quarter, as you said, on a quarter by quarter basis.
Great. Yep. Good. I think that makes sense. The only thing I would add is we did reduce our burn rate. That's mostly salaries, but we came up with a target that we wanted to spend monthly, and the team sort of had the task of self-organizing about how do we do it. And some people have gone to just to maybe 80% time. Some people are taking more shares, but everyone has stayed. So we have come up with something that's stable. And I think even though it's reduced income for many of us, it shows the commitment of the whole team to the project, right? We're all here because we're really behind the vision and the mission that we have. So in a way, that's quite positive to see.
Yeah, everyone totally believes in it, and we sure that the burn rate is at an acceptable rate, which is around 50K now per month. It is a good sized team, but it is also a good sized vision.
It's pretty
with a team of appropriate size to try and make that happen.
Yeah.
And we fund it on a quarter by quarter basis and see where we can realize revenue streams as soon as possible. We have several options down the line, and one of them I want to talk about in a moment.
Yep. Good. Okay, and then I would say one of the things that might be worth mentioning, if you look through the investor resources, we have on there a product roadmap that talks about here's what we're building. A lot of that is now built. The finding ideas is sort of night and day from what it was last September, October, in terms of being able to really personalize things and get to content. We have an entire author portal that's in version 1.0 that did not exist before, that's really opening up the possibilities for people to use the platform for their own purposes or for teams. And then there's some of these new pieces that they were under our learn column on the roadmap. We need to learn about teams, learn about value for authors. And a lot of that work has come up with the sort of workshops and trainers and, some new potential value streams. So maybe let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the big things we've learned, and that's the main purpose of startup, is to learn at the highest possible rate. One of the big things we learned is that the vision is far out there for many organizations. It is far away. What we offer is far away removed from where they are now. And we realized that we have probably the biggest opportunity in the space that I am actually quite familiar with, which is workshops, because their content is needed by participants, by facilitators, by organizers, etc. And we have a platform for content. So, and I have been doing workshops for plenty of years. So one thing that we are experimenting with now is to slightly tweak the user experience of the Mindsetters app and try and make it a nice experience or great experience in workshops. And of course, we start with my own Shift Up workshop. So that instead of people reading a an exercise from a slide on the PowerPoint wall or whatever, they can read it together from an app, from a tablet, and then follow the instructions from there. And then in the future, we could make that interactive, or we could have multiple paths, or we could have different versions depending on different audiences. Let's say 5 different versions of the same exercise, depending on what kind of industries you are in. It opens up a lot of possibilities. And the idea is that once people, when people go to workshops, they already have budgets for that. Companies, organizations already have budgets for learning budgets for sending people to classes. So that is much easier to start there, because that is already familiar to them. You just send people to a workshop and we pay for that. And then there we capture them, we get people to become familiar with the Mindsetters platform. They see there's a ton of great stuff there, and the idea is that they, once they are familiar with the platform, with the app in the workshop, they take it back to their own organization and then continue using it, because the facilitator will have some exercises to do with your own team back home. There could be tracks that you start in the workshop and that you have to finish once you go back. And that would be a tremendous opportunity for trainers and facilitators who have for years told me, and I know that from personal experience as well, that they always have a problem with nothing ever happening when people go back to their own organizations. They are in a 2-day class or a 3-day class, they learn a lot of stuff, and then they go back and nothing happens in their company, back to business as usual. So it would, for facilitators, be great to have something that they can give back, can give to people, that they take back to their own companies, where they continue what they started in their own organizations. And for us, that would be an opportunity to basically give Mindsetters in their hands. It would be an easier starting point because the budgets are already there. And then facilitators could, for example, subsidize through the learning budgets the first year of use of Mindsetters, and then we'll see from there. But that will be easier to make revenue that way. So that's the direction where we're going. We're now experimenting with that, with the use of Mindsetters as a tool where people have exercises and games in workshops. We have some tweaking to do to make the user experience fit that slightly different context than we had imagined up to recently. But small tweaks that we need to do. And then I think it's an easier path towards usage for people than expecting them to just download and Mindsetters.
Yeah, figure it out.
And figure it out for themselves. Yeah.
I want to add 2 things. One, we've done quite a bit of research too. Harold's been out interviewing a lot of trainers and a lot of individuals. The other, so trainers are keen to see people actually change their behavior, but so are organizations. They know they have these big training budgets, and they know that the majority of their spend is on training. It's not post-training, and they know that's where they need, they need some way to get people to actually apply what they've learned. So it's almost a no-brainer on that side if we come up with a good solution for them to demonstrate that they've translated knowledge into actual mastery or applied something valuable.
So if I can add to that, Paula, as you said, I'm still talking to trainers, facilitators, and there are a couple of angles that I pick up. I mean, it's not the same for everybody, but so, I mean, the one thing Jurgen already mentioned, people are just, trainers, facilitators are just interested to see their trainees succeed. So it's a deep personal interest, but also they realize this is a good, like, let's say, marketing or branding opportunity for them to stay connected with the people in their workshops. And at the end of the day, that also translates then into possible additional revenue opportunities. So it's really, I mean, there's motivation for almost everybody. I mean, some of them take it more from, I want to generate value. The others look more at it from a branding and marketing perspective. But most people are really enthusiastic, because we found that many have tried it's not like they haven't tried to keep people engaged after workshops and keep
Yes.
the momentum going. They have tried, but somehow they found it hard because it also needs a lot of personal engagement with the tools that they currently have.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hoping, at least that's our vision, to provide a tool that, with some preparation, of course, on the facilitator's side, aids in keeping the momentum going with the tool.
Right.
So, response so far, I think, is great.
Good.
And makes a lot of sense.
So we're sort of working through our priorities and starting our work. A lot of what we're doing overlaps with the initial, the single user scenario. I wanted to say one more thing too in our investors, which is our mission. This is totally aligned with our mission. It hasn't changed. Our mission to drive agility from the bottom up, to empower, to drive more agile mindsets and have people in teams, increasing their skills. This is just a fantastic avenue for it. We're just going to start with the formal learning that they're doing rather than the informal learning that they're doing on their own, perhaps, So it's not a shift in mission or purpose. It's just a different path, a little slightly different avenue to it.
Yeah, it's a slightly different focus, and it's not even a pivot. It's too small to call it a pivot. I call it this a typical example of a patch.
A patch, yes.
It sits between pivoting and persevering. It's this category in between where you make a significant change, but it's not really a big strategic change on your business model.
I sort of see it as a niche, like a segment, a sub-segment of what we've been trying to do. We've just narrowed it down to one.
Yeah.
One
exactly.
learning agile improvement cycle, one specific type. We've just narrowed it down.
Some would call that a pivot when you're narrowing down on a more specific target group. I hesitate to call that pivot, but anyways, that's just terminology. It is a patch for me. It is a bit of change, narrowing down of focus. Well, our focus was too large. If we focus here, then we have a more targeted approach, and for me, the big opportunity is that we with this approach, we don't have to try and get budgets from organizations for paying for tools. It would start in another category, which is their budgets for learning and development, training for people. That is often quite a different category of pricing I'm familiar with. Like a workshop of 1,000 euros will be cheap, while a tool of 20 euros per month they find expensive. That is just very different categories of budget.
It's a good point.
So yeah, we will. It's a different approach. I think it makes a lot of sense to focus there and get people familiar, become familiar.
The revenue potential is huge because as a trainer, you have a community, and all of a sudden we're tapping into communities one at a time as trainers come on board rather than one person at a time. So it's I think for the revenue outlook, the revenue business model forecast is quite valuable. Cool.
So yeah, I think that's the update that we have for investors. What we have learned and where we are going in the next couple of months.
Fabulous. I'll put some links. I'm going to get this on YouTube and share it out with our potential investors. And I'll put some supporting links up too to a lot of what we've been writing about a lot of this on the blog and communicating it out. So I'll point you to some additional resources and feel free to ask us any questions. That would be it. Thanks.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Have a great evening and take care, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.